The pandemic has shown us enormous potential for us to change and adjust some of the systems that were faulty already. And we have witnessed a lot of discussions that question some of the fundamentals of development cooperation, such as how we exercise solidarity, how we make sure that global public goods are given more prominence.
One thing that the COVID-19 crisis has really shown us is that the communities are at the front lines of responding, and now they have to be at the front line of recovering. So we need to make not only the national governments, nor even only the local governments, but the communities resilient.
COVID-19 is teaching us a very hard lesson that we can all survive just by ourselves. We survive together, we go through this together. I'm not saying that we are in the same boat. No, this is not the case. We are going through the same storm on different boats. But again, this can be a win on it if this is a win across the globe.
A much more flexible approach to who we're supporting. It's been a kind of long-term interest of mine to think about how development support and development partnerships can really also hear much more directly from the people whose lives are affected.
The legacy of the COVID-19 crisis is very uneven between developed and developing countries. Developing countries are lagging far behind in access to vaccines, but are also increasingly affected by debt issues.
Developing countries, particularly those already under threat of debt distress, should not be used as a stick wielded against them, particularly by such players as private creditors and credit rating agencies, but to transform them into opportunity, to provide them resources to actually invest in their resilience, in their green recovery, and in their ability to withstand climate shocks.
This crisis has demonstrated when the money is absolutely needed, we can find solutions that are quite innovative and defy the logic of how we understand macroeconomics.
Trillions of dollars will be put into the stimulus to the economy and in all sectors of our society. But if the money is not invested in a way that we are making our society greener, more resilient, and equitable, then we are just creating more risks.
The focus should be on productive capacity, on how to enhance productive capacity, because that is the way you can grow faster, start to generate better employment, and innovate.
When we are talking about COVID-19 just recovery, it has to be respecting the worldview of indigenous people and local communities. It has to be promoting the entrepreneurial skills of indigenous young people and supporting them when we are talking about green jobs.
One of the lessons that we learned last year is, for instance, about data. And it was very interesting to understand that data that even governments in partner countries and actors in partner countries, their data is most coming from the donors still.
A cruel reality is that too often it is the people who are most in need of government support who are most likely to be missing from the data, for whatever reason, because they live in a very remote area, because they belong to an ethnic group that the government doesn't really want to acknowledge.
From the region that I come from, which is Latino America, we don't actually have climate education inside of our system. If we don't have someone that is talking about, that is discussing, that is bringing the consciousness about it, how can we expect that people participate?
The technologies that we have at hand have demonstrated an opportunity for us to overcome these challenges.
We are making more tools available for countries in order to make risk-informed decisions.
We have seen that digital technology has been a silver lining during COVID in order to democratize these processes. But at the same time, it opens another can of worms when it comes to the digital inequalities. that are rampant in the world, particularly in developing world, but in many parts of the developed world as well.
I would like to broaden the perspective on what is development, because development for whom, by whom, and for what needs to be understood from the lens of indigenous people. And that is why I feel one commitment which can be done from the development cooperation to ensure that the indigenous people's leadership are part of the development cooperation spaces wherein policies are made.
And when you look into the geography of this pandemic impact, you realize what a difference it makes to have a younger population.
For us as a generation who will live with the outcomes of all the decisions that are taken in the field, including of the development cooperation in the next 10, 20 years, it is our imperative and our debt that we owe to the generations that have passed knowledge to us in their turn.
We will keep running and leading the changes on ground, and in every space we have the opportunity to occupy. We all want the same thing, and what it is to our lives to continue. Thank you.